I received a message from my sister on WhatsApp that instantly made my blood boil. "I left your disabled daughter at your house." I panicked and rushed home, only to find her alone outside, crying uncontrollably. That moment was a breaking point for me. I could no longer trust my sister with my children. It was time to show her what family truly meant. I'm Amanda, 43, with a lifelong passion for baking. Ever since I was a kid, I loved experimenting in the kitchen. While I'm pretty good at it, I still struggle with Chinese cakes. They tend to turn out dry, and my kids tease me about it, saying, "Mom, your Chinese cake is so dry." But they adore my muffins, and their friends often say, "We wish you were our mom." Those little moments make me feel like our family is whole. At least, that's what I thought. However, my sister Kathy had a different idea about what family should be. It all started a few years ago during spring break when we were visiting my parents. We were sitting together watching TV when Kathy suddenly said, "There are so many kids with developmental disabilities these days. I wonder why." Her comment came out of nowhere. The show wasn't even about disabilities. Everyone looked at her, confused. "What's that about?" I asked. Kathy explained that her colleague's child had been diagnosed with a developmental disability and that kids who are restless or struggle in school might fall into that category. She then said, "Honestly, I think Sarah might have one too." Sarah's Kathy's daughter. At the time, she seemed perfectly fine to me, happy, active, normal. So I asked, "Why would you say that?" Kathy responded calmly, "Because she's not as bright as Ken. Her language skills are behind, and it's like she has a poor memory." My husband Mike, my mom, and I exchanged uncomfortable glances. Sarah didn't seem off at all, but Kathy was fixated. "You don't understand," Kathy said with frustration. "I've been researching developmental disabilities. I know what I'm talking about." We assumed she would take Sarah to a doctor, but by summer, her attitude changed. She proudly announced at another family gathering, "Sarah does have a developmental disability." When my mom asked if she had taken Sarah to see a doctor, Kathy replied, "No, but I have proof." She looked smug. "Proof?" Mom frowned. "Stop acting like she's a criminal," Kathy snapped. "Sarah starts school next year and still can't write the alphabet." I responded, "That's normal for her age. Even my daughter struggles with some letters." Kathy retorted condescendingly, "That's because your daughter takes after you." Her husband Tim chimed in, "Maybe your daughter has a developmental disability too." Mother and daughter, like mother, like daughter. My blood pressure rose, but I kept calm. Kids develop at their own pace. No need to rush. But Kathy wouldn't let up. "Ken could write the alphabet years ago," she argued, comparing Sarah to her older brother Ken, who's 3 years older. I countered, "You can't compare them." Tim scoffed. From a medical perspective, Sarah clearly has a developmental disability. I stared at him, bewildered. "You're not a doctor, Tim." It was heartbreaking. They seemed convinced that Sarah had a problem just because she didn't meet Ken's high standards. I had always prided myself on being well-educated, graduating from a national university, yet here was my sister, dismissing my child's development. Meanwhile, Tim, who failed his entrance exams and only managed a private university, boasted about his intelligence, acting as if his achievements surpassed everyone else's. Later, Mike suggested Sarah should see a professional for an evaluation, but Kathy quickly said, "I've already consulted professionals. They agree with me." When Mike asked if she took her to a doctor, she replied, "I've watched health programs on TV. Their observations match Sarah's symptoms exactly, so it must be right." We all grew exasperated. Mom finally snapped, "TV is not a substitute for real medical advice. If you're truly concerned, take Sarah to a doctor." Kathy snapped back, "Stay out of our parenting," then stormed off, dragging Tim and Ken with her, leaving Sarah behind. Mom said quietly, "If they're going to act so superior, the least they could do is take proper care of Sarah." Meanwhile, Sarah was happily playing with my daughter, but I noticed her smile flicker for a moment, briefly replaced by sadness. It was as if she realized her family had abandoned her, and that shattered my heart. She didn't deserve to carry the weight of adult failures. I became more convinced than ever that Sarah didn't have a developmental disability. She was simply a victim of neglect and favoritism. Later, Kathy and Tim returned home in high spirits, carrying shopping bags. I looked at them and asked, "Do you often leave Sarah behind when you go shopping?" Kathy shrugged. It's just leaving her at home. What's the problem? I pressed. The problem is you never leave Ken behind. Why treat Sarah differently? She claimed. She doesn't listen. So we're teaching her discipline. I responded sharply. Discipline is one thing, but abandoning her is cruel. Tim jumped in defensively. We give her good food and a good education. Why do you keep criticizing us? I snapped. That's the bare minimum. You act like you're doing her a favor. This is a family matter, stay out of it. I looked directly at Tim and said, Sarah is my family too, and I won't stay silent while she's mistreated. Their silence confirmed everything. Mike added, if you think Sarah has a developmental disability, leaving her alone is even more irresponsible. Kathy, frustrated, slammed her hand on the table and argued that they were teaching Sarah discipline by leaving her at home. Their argument dragged on for hours. Eventually, Kathy and Tim left early, their favoritism toward Ken painfully obvious. At mealtime, if Ken's favorite shrimp was served, Kathy and Tim would heap extra onto his plate, sometimes taking from Sarah's. Sarah had always quietly accepted this treatment, never questioning her place. She remained in the background, enduring the unfairness, while Ken was always the center of attention, promised new toys and outings, while Sarah was often forgotten. That day, I realized that true family isn't about favoritism or appearances. It's about love, care, and standing up for those who can't speak for themselves. Sarah might look like she's just a quiet girl, but she's so much more. She's family, and she deserves better. Ken's accomplishments were celebrated with enthusiasm, while Sarah watched quietly from the sidelines. It was difficult to witness the constant praise for Ken, as Sarah's efforts often went unnoticed. One day, unexpectedly, Kathy arrived at our house with Sarah. Can you watch her today? She asked casually. Sarah looked confused but nodded quietly, suggesting she could go play in the park instead. We agreed, though we couldn't help but feel uncertain about such a sudden request. Later that evening, Kathy returned, appearing apologetic. Thanks for looking after Sarah, she said softly. Why the last-minute request? I asked, surprised. Oh, Ken had some friends over. Their mothers are doctors and lawyers. It would have been awkward with Sarah there, Kathy explained dismissively. I was taken aback. You're ashamed of your own daughter? She just doesn't fit in with them. Kathy shrugged, brushing it off as a joke. That's no excuse, I said firmly. She's your daughter, disability or not. You should support her, not criticize her. Her smile faded. You've only raised one child. Don't lecture me, she snapped, grabbing Sarah's arm and leaving. This behavior became increasingly common. Kathy and Tim would leave Sarah with us for long stretches while they took Ken on exciting trips, returning late without any apology or explanation. Their indifference only fueled my resolve to protect Sarah. She deserved so much more. One day, my frustration reached its peak. I confronted them. I told you to call before just showing up. Oh, don't be so picky, Kathy dismissed me. We're just here to pick her up, aren't we? That's not the point, I retorted. You can't just drop her off without notice. Kathy snorted. What's gotten into you? Menopause. Tim chuckled, and I clenched my fists, furious. You need to rethink how you're raising your children. We're doing fine, Kathy said. That's why Ken is involved in so many activities. Unlike your daughter, who doesn't do anything. I respect her wishes, I said. She doesn't want to join those activities. Well, we respect Ken's wishes too, Kathy said, turning to him. Ken gave a half-hearted nod, his forced smile betraying discomfort. See, Kathy said smugly, even Ken agrees. I sighed, exhausted. Fine, just take Sarah and go. Kathy grabbed Sarah's arm and led her to the car. Tim started the engine, and I was left feeling defeated. The next day, while shopping, I received a message from Kathy. Hey Amanda, you love Sarah, right? Consider her your daughter now. I left her at your doorstep. Hurry, she might be crying alone. I froze, reading the message again in shock. I tried calling Kathy, but her phone was off. Panic set in and I rushed home. When I arrived, my heart shattered. Sarah sat outside, trembling and crying uncontrollably. I quickly pulled her into my arms, holding her tight. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here, I whispered, tears in my eyes. The truth was clear. Kathy had abandoned her. My calls to Kathy and Tim went unanswered. They had deliberately cut off contact. Through her sobs, Sarah whispered, "Auntie, I didn't want to be left like that." I held her close, my anger toward Kathy and Tim growing. In that moment, I made a vow I would protect her no matter what. A week later, my husband, mother-in-law, and I went to Kathy's house with legal papers to formalize Sarah's adoption. We were ready. Sarah was going to be our daughter. To our surprise, Kathy and Tim didn't put up much resistance. "Sign here," Kathy said dismissively, her lack of remorse stinging. But I kept my composure. What mattered most was Sarah's well-being. 3 months later, Kathy appeared at our door, demanding Sarah back. "She's a genius. She won an art contest. Her paintings are even displayed at the bank. We didn't even know she liked to draw." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Of course you didn't. You never paid attention to her. I had submitted her artwork myself. Her school has been encouraging her talents for years, but you ignored it." Kathy's face reddened with embarrassment. "It doesn't matter. Just give her back." I shook my head firmly. "That's not how it works. The adoption is final. Sarah is our daughter now. But if she wants to return to you, I won't stop her." When I called Sarah into the room, she hesitated before clutching my hand and whispering, "Mama." She had started calling me, as well as Auntie Kathy. Seeing Kathy reach for her, Ken stepped protectively in front of his mother. "Ken, what are you doing? Don't you have lessons?" Kathy snapped. Ken's voice trembled as he replied, "I don't want to go to lessons anymore. I hate them. I hate everything you make me do." Kathy tried to scold him, but I stopped her. "Don't you see? Your children don't want the things you're forcing on them. You're so focused on appearances and success, you've forgotten about their happiness." Kathy stood silently, stunned. "Just go home," I said firmly. "You've lost the right to call yourself their mother." In the years that followed, our family grew stronger. Sarah, Ken, and our daughter formed an unbreakable bond. Ken moved in with my mother, and Sarah flourished in our home, pursuing her passion for art. Despite the challenges, every step was worth it. Our house was filled with love, laughter, and the joy of watching each child grow into their own person. Meanwhile, Kathy and Tim became more isolated, burdened by the consequences of their selfishness. Our lives weren't perfect, but they were filled with what truly mattered: family.